I'm Brother Fox. Remember, we have rules to tell you that you didn't know. When you're outside, there's a man, and he says, "Do you want drugs?" And he says, "No." So, good for you is do not use drugs. Drugs are bad. You'll die if you do drugs, so don't do drugs. Don't get your head blind, and don't die. Because when you regenerate, you're dead. Game over. So, don't die. Live a longer life. Eat your fruits and vegetables. By the time it'll be 2020, as saying 2020, but doing this in 2019 and 2020. So, so don't do drugs. It's bad for you. So don't do drugs, okay? Drugs are bad, and don't do them. And I learned my lesson. So it's best not to do drugs. So if you have drugs, take them away and say no thanks. Because if you use the drugs, you'll die. Especially cigarettes, because if you get cigarettes, you'll get cancer. It won't be a good idea. Don't use blind things. Like, don't use a light. Don't use a flashlight in your eye like Jeffy did at SML. Or don't use your light so you won't get blind. Just look like everybody did. And because when you have blind, I have a question. Mister, I have a question. What's your question? What's blind? Blind means that you have a light and you put it in your eye and you can't even see nothing, just black. Thank you for giving. Thank you for your. Thank you for your. What was it? Oh yeah. Thank you for your suggestion. So don't get blind. Don't do drugs, and don't rob anybody. So don't do. So number one, don't do drugs. Number two, don't do. Don't do. Don't be blind. Drugs is a drugs is like a medicine or a cigarette where you smoke. A drug is really not healthy for people and animals. So why is drug not meant for dogs? So so the dog doesn't die. Because if the dog eats the drugs, then the dog dies. So if you have a cat or a dog, don't give them chocolate or drugs. Don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. So if you're only the person out there and the homeless person says, "You want some of my drugs, man?" And he says yes, and if you drink the drugs, you'll die. So, but if the homeless person says, "You want some drugs?" and you say, "Yes," I mean no, and then he said, "Okay, that's fine." So say no to drugs. Don't do drugs. Okay? No drugs. Don't do drugs or don't get your head blind. It's illegal and it's against the law. Don't do drugs. Like Bill Cosby did drugs for young ladies. He got arrested. So don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. And I hope you learned your lesson. So don't do drugs.